Hi, everyone. I'm Noah Khan from TBWA. I'm incredibly excited to be presenting to you and taking up 20 to 25 minutes to talk through some of the shifts that we are seeing post the pandemic and as the world starts to build new and different ways of engaging and connecting. So as we all know, the pandemic's made a tremendous shift in the world over the last 2.5 years. We've all seen these images, and we've all seen the impact that the pandemic has made. But put mildly, it's been an absolute dumpster fire. It has resulted in most of us not being able to see our loved ones, engage in activities the way we used to. It's made a complete change in the way we interact with the world around us. And it has also meant that we have adapted to new ways of working, new ways of seeing the world, new ways of connecting with each other. And that type of connections have not just been limited to how we interact with one another on a personal level, they've also extended to how we interact with brands themselves. So 81% of consumers that were surveyed said that they have developed a new way of engaging with a brand during the pandemic. And 92% said that they will continue to use that new behavior moving forward post-pandemic. And the shift in the way our audience has been engaging with brands has also not just been limited to the traditional ways in which you expect consumers to engage and behave. So this is a chart which shows the number of people that attended the Travis Scott concert on Fortnite. It was almost close to 13 million. If you compare that to something like the Football World Cup, you can see what a vast difference it is. So the audience has not just transitioned in the way it engages with the world, it has also transitioned in the way it's consuming messaging, where they're congregating and how they're connecting amongst themselves. And in many cases with people from all around the world that they normally wouldn't do if it wasn't for the pandemic and the way we've had to change the way we communicate and connect. TikTok this year will have 22 billion hours of content viewed. So just to put that into very rough perspective, that is 3% of all of humanity's attention will be spent on TikTok. And 4 in 5 Gen Z have said that they have asked their parents, influenced their wallet holders to go out and buy a product or a service that they actually saw on the platform itself. Again, these numbers were a lot smaller as we started approaching the pandemic and as our audience has started to spend more and more time on these platforms. Their engagement models have changed. And the way they have started looking at brands and brand messaging has also continued to change. And through this, what we've seen is that engagement has now become awareness. The traditional funnel of how we saw audiences coming into a brand's world through awareness and then finally going through to completion has disappeared. The primary interaction now is engaging with the brand itself. And based on those engagements, your audience is deciding either to continue that relationship or move on and start a new one with a different brand. And the thing that has happened across the entire globe and across all of humanity is our relationships have changed. Our personal relationships with one another has changed. Our relationship within our working environments have changed. And the relationships we have with brands has also tremendously changed due to the pandemic. And through this shift, what we've also seen is there's a whole new level of expectation, great expectations from your audience on how they expect your brand to behave in a post-pandemic world. The first one is that customers are expecting you to know them and really know them. They are expecting every engagement to be better as the relationship continues. They're expecting you to understand what they are looking for. They're expecting you to understand what their needs are, and they're expecting you to serve them across all of your platforms to meet those needs whenever they need to. They're also expecting your brand to stand for something. So previously, the expectation was that your brand would represent a great product or a service, and you would stand behind that. Now, the expectation is that your brand not only stands behind a great product or a service, but your brand actually stands for something that is greater than itself and its bottom line. So Patagonia is an incredible example of a brand that takes out full page adverts where they ask people not to buy their products and instead go and look at the options that are available when it comes to previously owned garments that will be better for the planet. And the other thing the audience is also now expecting is it is expecting you to be omnipresent. So when we had the final episode of Friends air many years ago, pretty much the entire world that had access to that content tuned in, and it peaked at roughly 65 million. The Travis Scott concert, when streamed, reached over 130 million on the primary showing and the secondary lines of streaming as well. So you can just imagine how vast the space has become. But even more than that, what your audience is expecting you to do is not just be available on a single platform. Your audience is expecting you to be on multiple platforms through different points of their journey, serving and engaging with them in different and more interesting ways. So here's a clip from a movie which I think explains this really good summary of how challenging it becomes to remain omnipresent and connected at all times. But it is expected from your brand, and it is something that brands need to be very good at to maintain that connection throughout. The next one your audience has come to expect is that technology is an absolute basic. It is fundamental to your brand's existence. Your brand is expected to be available all the time. Your brand is expected to adapt itself as technology progresses and changes. Your brand has to be accessible to your audience on the platforms where they congregate, instead of you expecting them to come to your space to engage with your brand. Part of this reason is that our audience has become tremendously dependent on technology. Working from home, using video conferencing tools and various other means has meant that technology has accelerated forward, and the expectation of what your technology stack is and how you use that to serve your audience has also become pivotal in your success in building these connections. Here's a recent statistic that we pulled together, and I will just focus on the first one and the last one. So 76% of consumers say their everyday lives and activities depend on tech. So this is not the number of people that use technology. These are people that say their everyday lives absolutely depend on technology. The last number, which is 50% of consumers say their health and well-being depends on technology. So if you can just imagine how important having your technology up to date, ready, available, and connected all the time to your audience to build those relationships is incredibly important for your success in a post-pandemic world. Your audience is also expecting you to have a point of view on where the future is heading. So it is estimated by the year 2030, the metaverse will become an ecosystem that is worth over $2.5 trillion US. Your audience may not expect you to have a presence in any platform today, but they absolutely expect you to have a point of view and be there when they get there. So again, building in your strategies, building in your plans for the future, and creating those innovation opportunities are going to be incredibly important to continue connecting with your audience. The next thing they're expecting is for you to be consistent. Your audience is looking to build a connection through which they want to discover all the new and interesting things that you are offering, rather than you consistently changing your offering, your storefront, your branding. So consistency across all your platforms, consistency across your messaging is incredibly important in maintaining those relationships. And we think at the heart of all of this is that brands need to move from a space of pure communications to a space of experience. And the way we look at experience at TBWA is we look at it across three key areas. The first one is advertising, and this is what a brand says. It is all of the TV, print, radio, social, so on and so forth. The next is products and services. This is what a brand does. And the last one is relationship. This is where it is everything that the brand delivers. We think focusing across these three key areas to build those experiences means that you're able to disrupt the ecosystems that currently exist and build out incredible relationships with your audience. And we also feel that with experience at the heart, it allows us to open up the aperture of creativity, with creativity not simply being relegated to ads alone, but being able to thrive in new and exciting ways through which those relationships are built and grown. So here's something that I stole from one of my new favorite TV shows. It's called The Offer, and it is a mini series that focuses on the trials and tribulations the team went through when they were trying to make The Godfather. And Bob Evans, who was the head of Paramount Pictures, is in a very heated conversation with the other studio heads because Francis Ford Coppola's original edit of The Godfather was 2 hours and 45 minutes. And all of the money men in the room want the film edited down to 2 hours, because if it is 2 hours, they can show it 5 times a day, thus making more money. And if it is 2 hours 45, they can only show it 3 times a day. And the argument that Evans makes is that the movie is an experience. An experience has to take as long as it takes for the audience to take that journey, understand every single nuance, really relish the moment, and then come out of it knowing that they've had an incredible, unchangeable experience after watching The Godfather. So it is not transactional. It is about experience, and how you build and deliver those experiences will change the way your brand is seen and changes the way your brand grows. So few key things that I think brands should be focusing on as we move out of the pandemic and start adapting to life in a world that is post-pandemic. The first one is digital, digital, digital. If your brand has not already moved its thinking, its business, its communications to a digital first world, then that is the absolute first thing that you need to do. If your brand is not digitally present, then your brand is absolutely going to be ignored and left behind. The second one is, now is the time to move from brand identity, which is a little bit stuffy and a little bit limiting and quite restrictive, to brand personality. Brand personality allows your brand to really build a relationship with your audience, really build an experience, really build a connection. And here's a piece of work that we did for Adidas, which I'm incredibly proud of, that I'd like to show you, that showcases what personality means to us.
I'm Asma Al-Badawi. I don't just play ball. I'm queen of the ball. And I believe in equal play. When they tried to ban my hijab, I fought, I won, and kept wearing my crown. On my court, we all rise. My story is not impossible because I'm possible.
So that's an incredible piece of work we did for Adidas, and that is showcasing the brand's true personality. The brand lives, breathes, and behaves that it is, nothing is impossible, and empowering a female sports star, standing behind her, giving her the opportunity to stand her ground and thrive and represent is a brand really living its beliefs and showcasing all of the different elements of its personality. The second part of the personality equation is the fact that your brand needs different lenses. Your brand has to build different parts of its personality and communicate those in different ways through different lenses on different platforms. So the way your brand behaves on a platform such as TikTok needs to be very different to how your brand behaves on a platform such as LinkedIn. So building out those brand lenses and making sure your brand is seen through them will make those relationships stronger and more relevant as you speak to those different audiences in those different spaces. The next one is brands need to look to creating culture. Great brands don't follow culture, they create it. So whatever your brand is, wherever your brand exists, your brand needs to look to see how it can make a dent in culture and how it can really create a niche for itself and build those relationships through culture. The next one is your brand needs to build freedom. So the teams that work on your communications, the teams that work on your brand need to be allowed to express themselves, be as free as they need to be to make those connections happen, to make those experiences come to life, and to make sure your audience is constantly feeling like they are engaging with a changing, evolving, growing, breathing entity rather than a dull brand that is stuck in the past. You also need to be brave enough to open up your brand. More and more of a brand's existence as part of this relationship and these connections means opening up your brand in allowing your consumers to take the brand and interpret it in their own way, make it their own, give them a sense of ownership and pride in what your brand stands for. So a really good example is a brand like Airbnb, where Airbnb's relationship with you beyond your booking is quite limited. So the experience itself is handed over to the host. And when you check into your rental home on Airbnb, what they're expecting the host to do is deliver on all of the promises of Airbnb. So that, for me, is a great example of a brand giving up a lot of its control to its cohorts and asking them to live and breathe every part of it. The next one is your brand needs to fuel creativity. So again, opening up what creativity is rather than limiting it to ads alone, but allowing your teams to work across all of the different exciting parts of what that creativity translates into when it comes to building connections, relationships, and experiences is incredibly important. The next one is your brand needs to be authentic, honest, and fallible. Something that the pandemic has taught us over and over again is brands that were honest, brands that came out and showed their human side, brands that were able to say sorry when they made a mistake and made amends, were brands that thrived versus those that retained their corporate heritage, stayed to previously scripted messaging, did not succeed as much as the others did. You couldn't ask for a more fallible moment than this. So, you are launching your brand new Cybertruck and the glass that's meant to be bulletproof gets easily cracked. There was no attempt from Tesla or Musk to try and cover that up. He simply shrugged it off and said, we've got more work to do. And that increased the number of people that were more interested in that car than if that had worked out perfectly. The next one is experimentation. For your brand to build connections, your brand has to constantly experiment. Your brand needs to be looking at new and interesting experiences through which it can build those connections with your audience. So experimentation has to be absolutely built in and baked into the way you think and work. Speed and agility is the last one, where your audience is expecting you to react quickly. Your audience is expecting you to be there quickly. Your audience is expecting you to correct quickly if it needs to be. So your brand needs to be able to deliver at speed and be flexible with agility to continue to build and maintain those connections. I'd like to finish with a quote from Mohammed Gargawi, who is a cabinet minister in the UAE, which I thought was quite poignant. He said, "We've changed because it's time to change." So there is a beautiful moment where he's looking at the fact that change was needed, and COVID was simply seen as a catalyst in reinventing what an entire country meant. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for your time. Thank you for having me, and I'll pass you back over to our hosts.
No, thank you very much. This has been a very colorful, very inspirational presentation. It's colorful indeed. What I liked very much is this reinvention part of it. The more we talk about technology, the more human we become, or the more need we have to become human. Let's conclude with that. What would your final remarks be on that, on this statement?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it is us with technology rather than us or technology, and how we embrace technology and change to better adapt ourselves and build those lasting connections and experiences, I think is going to be incredibly important in the years to come.
Are we really able to reinvent ourselves?
Absolutely. I think we most definitely should. A simple example is my daughter was 8 when the pandemic hit, and someone explained to me that she has spent 20% of her life on the planet locked inside an apartment. She reinvented herself every day. She found new ways to keep herself occupied. She found new ways to learn and entertain and connect. So I think, if an 8-year-old can do it, all of us should be able to.
So we send love to your daughter from Istanbul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye now.